AITA for walking out of my wedding after my bride's ex didn't show up? My name is Marcus. I am 31 years old, and what happened on my wedding day was so strange that even now, some time later, I am still trying to fully understand it. Even so, I am going to tell it exactly as it happened, without unnecessary embellishments. Nicole and I were together for 2 years. She was 27. Our relationship was not perfect, but it was not particularly problematic either. We met at the office in a fairly routine corporate environment, and at first, everything was simple. Long conversations, shared interests, and relaxed evenings out. Nothing extraordinary, but it was stable. As time went by, Nicole started talking more and more about marriage, not so much about married life after tying the knot, but specifically about the wedding itself. She had a very clear image in her mind of a large, elegant event, almost like something out of a movie. She always mentioned a country club, warm lights at sunset, live music, impeccably dressed guests, and an entrance that would capture everyone's attention. I would listen to her and nod, not because I completely shared that vision, but because I understood how important it was to her. The problem was that, realistically, my financial situation did not match that kind of celebration. I had some savings, yes, but not enough to cover her ideal without putting myself in an irresponsible position. When I proposed to her, I was honest. I told her I wanted to marry her and that I saw a future together, but I also made it clear what kind of wedding I could actually afford. She accepted, or at least that is what I thought. During the months of preparation, I started to notice small changes in her attitude. Nothing obvious enough to alarm me at the time, but strange enough to make me uncomfortable. She got distracted easily. Sometimes, in the middle of important conversations about the wedding, she would just stare at her phone. She would not respond right away when I spoke to her. On more than one occasion, I asked her if everything was okay, and she always said the same thing. I am fine. I am just tired. There were also comments that did not quite fit. From time to time, she mentioned her past indirectly. She gave no details or names, but she dropped phrases like, "Before everything was more intense," or, "Oh, there are things one does not forget so easily." I did not delve into it. I thought that we all have past histories and that insisting too much would only bring unnecessary problems. Even so, there was a constant feeling, difficult to explain, as if something inside her was not completely closed. The topic of the wedding venue became a recurring argument. She insisted on the country club. I showed her the numbers, budgets, and more affordable options. I tried to be as clear as possible without causing conflict. In the end, we reached an agreement on a more modest banquet hall at a local hotel. It was well decorated, but very far from what she had imagined. She accepted, but something changed from that moment on. Her enthusiasm obviously diminished. The wedding day arrived. From the morning, something felt out of place. It was not the typical nervousness. I expected to be anxious, yes, but what I perceived in her was different. When I saw her before the ceremony, her reaction was not what one would expect. There was no visible emotion, no tears, no wide smile, just a brief greeting and a gaze that would not stay fixed. The dress she chose was simple. It was not ugly, but clearly more discreet than what she had always described. On its own, it would not have been a problem, but considering everything she had said for months, it felt contradictory. And then there was the phone. Nicole would not let it go. She had it in her hand constantly. She checked the screen every few minutes, even when she was surrounded by family members or when someone tried to talk to her. Several times I noticed her unlock it quickly and then put it away as if she did not want anyone to see what she was doing. At one point I asked her directly, "Are you expecting something important?" She replied almost immediately, "No, I am just looking at some messages." I did not insist. Now I think I should have. The ceremony began. The guests were seated, family, friends, and some coworkers. The atmosphere was normal, even pleasant. There were conversations, smiles, and people taking photos. I was at the altar, waiting. When Nicole started walking down the aisle toward me, everyone turned their heads. Under any other circumstances, it would have been a significant moment, but even then something did not feel right. Her expression was serious, not exactly distant, but disconnected. She walked confidently, but without the emotion you expect to see in someone about to get married. She reached the altar. We stood face to face. The officiant began to speak about commitment, union, respect, and the usual words. I tried to focus, keep calm, and convince myself that everything was fine. But then I noticed another detail. Nicole kept looking back, not constantly, but several times. She turned her head slightly, as if looking for someone among the guests or even beyond them. I felt a growing discomfort. The officiant asked us to hold hands. We did. Her hands were cold. When it came time for the vows, I spoke first. I said what I had prepared. It was not perfect, but it was sincere. When I finished, everyone waited for Nicole. A few seconds passed. She did not react immediately. She looked to the sides, then back again. She took a deep breath and then said, "My ex-boyfriend is going to arrive at any moment, and I am going to leave with him." The silence was immediate. There was no laughter or whispering at first. It was an absolute silence, as if no one had processed what they had just heard. For a second I thought I had misunderstood. I looked at her expecting her to smile, to say something else, or to clarify that it was a bad joke. She did not. Her expression remained completely serious. The officiant stood motionless, clearly out of place. Some people in the front rows started exchanging glances. Others began to whisper, still not fully understanding. I did not say anything at first. I just watched her, waiting for her to add something, but she did not. She just looked toward the entrance of the venue, as if she really expected someone to appear at any moment. That was when I understood that this was not an impulse or a mistake. It was something she had decided to do, and she was doing it in front of everyone. Her mother was the first to react. "What are you saying, Nicole?" she asked loudly, visibly upset. "Stop making jokes." That comment seemed to give people a comfortable way out. Several expressions changed, as if they wanted to cling to the idea that it was all an inappropriate joke. It was easier to believe that, but Nicole shook her head. "It is not a joke," she replied firmly. "We reconnected a month ago and decided to leave together. We are going to start over. He is coming for me." That sentence shattered any lingering doubts. The murmurs grew louder. Nobody was trying to hide it anymore. Some looked directly at us, while others avoided eye contact. The officiant took a step back as if wanting to disappear from the scene. I felt something difficult to describe. It was not immediate anger. It was more like disbelief mixed with a sense of emptiness. "Are you listening to yourself?" I finally said. "Are you really doing this here?" Nicole looked at me. For the first time all day, she seemed truly present, but there was no sadness or guilt in her expression. It was something colder. "I always wanted a big wedding," she said. "I always said so. And when I saw what you could actually offer, I understood that I was making a mistake." That sentence provoked an immediate reaction. "What are you saying?" Her mother intervened, getting up from her seat. "This is not the time to talk about that." "It is the truth," Nicole replied without changing her tone. "I was not going to stay in a life I did not want." "Behave yourself," her mother interrupted, visibly embarrassed. The argument between them started to escalate. It was no longer a private conversation. It had become a confrontation in front of everyone. Some guests avoided looking, while others watched openly, as if they could not look away. I remained at the altar without moving. I did not know whether to intervene, leave, or say anything else. Any reaction seemed insufficient for such an absurd situation. Several minutes passed. No one arrived. Nicole kept looking toward the entrance intermittently, checked her phone, walked a few steps, and then stopped. The tension did not disappear, but it began to transform into collective discomfort. Some people spoke in low voices. Others checked their watches. That was when I decided to break that state. "And where is he?" I asked in a drier tone. "Where is your ex-boyfriend?" Nicole did not hesitate. "He is going to arrive," she replied. "He told me he would not be long." I shook my head slightly. This is ridiculous, I thought. I did not say it out loud. There was no need. Everyone was already thinking it. At that moment, something changed among the guests. A woman sitting at one of the side tables stood up. I recognized her. She was a friend of Nicole's. She had hung out with us on several occasions. She had always been direct, even somewhat confrontational, but I never imagined she would intervene like this. She laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was clear and open. "How naive," she said without raising her voice, but loud enough for several people to hear. Several people turned toward her. Nicole frowned. "Shut up," she replied. "You know nothing." "I know more than you think," the friend answered, staying calm. She took out her phone and held it up just enough for Nicole to see it. I could not see well from where I stood, but the change in Nicole's expression was immediate. Confusion. What is that? She murmured, stepping a little closer. The friend turned the phone slightly, allowing a few people nearby to also see the screen. It was a video call, and on the other side was him, a man lying on what was clearly a beach with light sand, the sea in the background, and an umbrella. He was wearing sunglasses and holding a beer. There was no rush or tension in his expression. He seemed to be on vacation. Nicole took a step back. No, she said in a low voice. That cannot be. Say hello, the friend said with irony. He is watching you. The man raised the bottle slightly, as if giving a casual greeting. He did not look uncomfortable. He looked entertained. Nicole shook her head. No, not this. She tried to speak, but could not finish her sentences. Did you really think he was going to come? The friend continued. Nicole did not answer. She just stared at the screen. You said that, she began, addressing the phone. You said you would come. The man smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was clearly mocking. You could not hear everything he said, but his attitude made it clear he was taking none of it seriously. Some people stood up to see better, and then others followed. The circle around the friend began to grow. What was previously contained tension turned into a chaotic scene, although no one really raised their voice. Nicole was completely thrown off. This was not what we talked about, she said, almost to herself. You said we were going to start over. The friend let out a small laugh. Yes, start over, but without you. Nicole glared at her angrily. Shut up. No, the friend replied. Because I spoke with him. That comment sparked another wave of murmurs. What? Nicole asked, confused. I spoke with him a few days ago, she continued. Do you know what he told me? Nicole did not answer. She seemed not to want to hear. That he never intended to come, the friend said. That he was just killing time with you. Silence returned for a moment, but it was no longer the same. Now it was loaded with shame. Nicole looked back at the screen. That is not true, she said. You texted me. The man on the video call took another sip of his beer. Then he spoke. This time, some of those closer managed to hear. Relax, it was just for fun. Nicole stood frozen, as if her mind needed time to process it. No, she repeated. No, you said that. But she did not finish the sentence because there was nothing left to hold on to. No promises, no plans, no excuses. Just the reality exposed in front of everyone. The scene had not yet settled when Nicole's friend did something else. Without warning, she hung up the video call. The sharp sound of the disconnect marked a clear end, as if there was nothing left to prove. Nicole kept staring at the screen, hoping the image would return. It did not. The friend lowered her phone calmly, put it away, and looked right at her. The truth is, she said, that he and I made a bet. There was a pause. No one spoke. If I managed to get you to ruin your wedding, I would give him money. She did not say it with emotion or anger. She said it as if she were explaining something unimportant. I thought you were not going to fall for it so easily, she added. But well, I guess he won. That was the final blow. Nicole did not react immediately. Her face changed little by little. First disbelief, then comprehension, and finally something deeper. She began to cry. It was not a discreet cry. It was obvious and messy. I trusted him, she said through tears, more to herself than to anyone else. No one approached her. No one tried to comfort her. At that moment, one of my friends got up from his seat. I knew him well. He was not someone who filtered his thoughts. Well, he said, looking around. Is the wedding canceled, or do we eat anyway because the food is already here? Some people let out an uncomfortable laugh. I do not think it makes sense to waste all this, he added. That comment completely shattered what little solemnity remained. The ceremony ceased to exist in that instant. What was left was simply a group of people who had witnessed something absurd and now did not know how to act. Nicole was still crying, but then something changed. It was subtle but evident. She lifted her head, quickly wiped her tears, and took a deep breath, as if making a desperate decision. Okay, she said. We can continue. Several people looked at her in disbelief. She looked directly at me. Let's go on, she added. Let's forget about this. That was probably the most baffling moment of all. Not what had happened before, but her attempt to act as if nothing had occurred. I watched her for a few seconds before answering. I did not feel anger in that moment. It was something colder and clearer. No, I said. I paused. I do not know what is worse, I continued. Whether what you just did, or that you still believe it can be ignored. No one intervened. This is not a mistake, I added. It is a decision you made in front of everyone. Nicole shook her head. I just made a mistake, she said. We can fix it. But it was already too late. The guests' reactions began to change. The uncomfortable silence turned into open remarks, discreet at first, then not so much. Someone laughed, then another. Then the more direct comments began, not all of them, but enough. Nicole took a step back. She looked for her mother, hoping for support. She did not find it. Her mother shook her head, visibly affected. I cannot believe this, she said. I really cannot. Nicole started crying again. Mom, let's go, she said with a broken voice. But her mother did not move. You go, she replied. I will leave later. That answer was enough. Nicole stood motionless for a few seconds, then turned around and ran out. No one stopped her. No one followed her. The door closed behind her, and with that, it was all over. Or at least what was left of that story. I stayed at the altar for a few more seconds, not thinking too much, just processing. One of my friends approached. Are you okay? I did not answer right away. There was no need. Everything was clear. In the end, I decided not to leave. The banquet was already paid for. The food was served, and leaving would have given even more weight to what had happened. So we sat down. My friends, some relatives, and even my mother stayed. The atmosphere was strange. It was not a celebration, but it was not a sad moment in the traditional sense either. It was somewhere in between, a kind of awkward gathering where everyone knew they had witnessed something out of the ordinary. My mother stayed with me. She did not say much, but her presence was enough. That night I drove home. The silence on the way was no longer tense. It was more like exhaustion. In the following days, everything settled quickly, too quickly. The story began to circulate first among the guests, then among acquaintances, and then beyond. Not because I told it. It was simply inevitable. Nicole disappeared. She left town. No one knew exactly when, how, or where. She did not return to her house, did not pack up her things, and did not try to communicate, as if she had decided to completely erase that part of her life. I took care of what was left, her belongings, clothes, and personal items. At first, I thought about keeping them, waiting to see if she would return, but as the days went by, that idea lost its meaning. I ended up donating most of it to a local charity, not out of spite, but because there was no reason to keep anything. They were just objects, and what they represented no longer existed. Over time, everything became clearer, not in the sense of understanding why it happened, but in accepting that it happened and that there was nothing left to salvage. If anything remained from all this, it was a strange feeling, as if I had witnessed something that should not have happened like that, something that even now still seems unreal, but it was real. And that is why I am telling it, because there are things that, if not put into words, never quite fit together completely. And this is one of them. Comment. I always feel a mix of emotions after sharing stories like this one. What stands out to me the most is how crucial it is to value ourselves enough to walk away from situations that don't serve us. I want you to remember that your peace and self-worth should never be up for negotiation. Setting firm boundaries in relationships isn't about being difficult. It's about protecting your heart. We all make mistakes, but taking responsibility for them helps us grow stronger. Be kind to yourself while you're healing, because you deserve that gentleness. Choosing calm and stability over drama might not feel exciting at first, but it brings real happiness in the long run. Pay close attention to how people show up for you, especially in difficult moments. You are worthy of love that feels safe, consistent, and genuine. Thank you for watching and reflecting on these lessons with me. I truly appreciate you being part of this community. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.